That is the craziest thing.
That is the craziest
Like
thing.
and my boss, Sol Trujillo, says, if you see a country that has such a tremendous GDP,
Yeah.
and it grows in that velocity, you want to invest.
That's massive.
We come here with nothing, and our kids become doctors.
Yeah.
That is upward mobility. I'm future-proofing my brand,
Yeah.
because if I don't do Latino strategy, I'm not going to be here in 10 years. When people
100%.
don't even notice. That's how Latinos are driving pop culture. I think Latino youth will save the United States. I'm excited.
All right, let's get started. Ana, welcome to La Convo. Really appreciate you being here. I'm super excited for us to be chatting today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Jesus.
Yeah.
This is really exciting. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. So being here is not only an excuse, a great opportunity, and then share, right?
Yeah.
Share these ideas, our conversation. So thanks for having me.
By the way, and I think to that point, I love the idea of like, this exactly would be the conversation we should be having or would be having if we were having lunch or doing a phone call, right? So I think that's kind of the whole idea behind this.
I love that.
Right, and speaking of which, so I know we were chatting right before we started, and I think one of the things that we were talking a little about the idea around culture and specifically some of the uniqueness of sometimes from myself, Mexican culture, and as it relates to our humor, our roasting each other constantly. We're talking about nicknames, and it's something that I think when people are not fully familiar with it, it's not always as people know, so it gets a little bit uncomfortable, right? That this comes from a place of love, but a lot of times we know it could be a little harsh, right?
I agree. Sometimes non-Latino people go to my house or to my family's home in Mexico or something, and it's like, hey, gorda, flaca, chaparro,
right,
negro. And they're like, oh my God,
everything.
please, this is like bullying in action.
I was telling my daughter that, so I spent like 5 years in Mexico as a kid, right? So from the age of 5 to 10, I got a chance to grow up in my dad's hometown, which is this small town. Actually, it's a Pueblo Mágico, right? So you have a number of like these towns in Mexico
Right.
that designed as or assigned as Pueblo Mágico. So his is one of them. It's called Jiquilpan.
Oh, nice.
It's in Michoacán. And the one thing that I remember always is that people were like brutal with nicknames. Right, and it was always like giving people names of like animals, right, or name. And then I was telling my daughter the story the other day, and the funniest part about it is like once you heard the name, it's like you couldn't unsee it, Like there was a guy whose name was Venado, right, like deer, and you looked at the dude, and he was like pretty thin dude, and you were like, I can see it. The worst one though was this guy they call him La Foca. Right, so it's not a seal. It will be no, not a seal. Which is the bigger one?
Yeah. Oh my God, totally spaced.
Yeah. Well, but anyways, the guy looked like one.
No way.
Right. Yeah, he looked like it, like his face and everything. So once you hear it,
funny.
it was hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. And then you know what? It's very
so brutal.
stereotyping.
It's super.
Right? I mean, like these people.
Whatever stereotype you're gonna get,
they're scarred for life.
Get just nailed. Yeah, that is. Now, how about you? Do you have any nicknames growing up?
No, you know what? My family was we kind of are nerds, kind of like, so we were very to the point, very specific, and in some ways probably a little politically correct. So we could criticize everybody from behind the scenes, but in front of people they wouldn't.
Yeah.
The one thing that we all called each other is, and it's horrifying for my American friends, is gorda.
Right.
So gordo, gordito, gordota, gordoto. So it's if you're skinny, if you're not skinny, it doesn't matter. You're gorda, and it's actually endearing.
Yeah.
So that's the only one we had. That's the only.
Yeah. No, we had a little bit of that, but my family, definitely we roast each other super hard. You walk into family events, you gotta be ready to throw down. Like I would say. So you asked me earlier if I was giving my nickname, so I will. I'll tell you this. So when I was a kid, so first of all, I'm named after my grandfathers, right? So my name is Jesus Francisco. So Jesus was the name of my dad's dad, and Francisco was the name of my mom's dad, right?
Oh, nice.
So that's why Jesus Francisco. But as a kid, this was like during the time where the Dukes of Hazzards were still being, shown. And I have an older brother and older sister. And specifically, my brother is the one that is very funny in the family. And they said that as a kid, I used to look a lot like one of the characters. That was like whenever I eat, I was a little bit heavier set, and I would get really messy when I would eat. So they said that I looked a lot like JD Hogg, which is a character.
Hogg.
Those remember that?
I remember
JD
that.
Hogg. So that somehow evolved from JD to, so they would call me JD is one thing they would call me. and it evolved to Jesse. So that's where that ended up. But
Oh,
the
so
roots,
Jesse not from Jesus, but from
right,
that. Oh,
from right. So it wasn't as terrible, the overall nickname, but the roots
That
were
is
pretty brutal.
That is so funny. Do you know that Daisy from the Dukes of Hazzard is Latina?
No.
The blonde blue eyes girl that everybody was
From the
madly in
original
love
show?
with
From
the original show?
Oh, interesting.
is Latina.
Oh, I
and
didn't
is
know that.
actually a super proud Latina. She's a really lovely woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that. I think back in the day, some of these folks that had crossed over, they, it wasn't as obvious, obviously, with the exception of someone like Desi Arnaz. That's what I thought you were going to talk about.
Right.
Who was very Latino, both in character and who he was.
Yeah.
The
Super
other
proud.
one is from Wonder Woman, right? She was
Yes,
Latina as well.
exactly. Linda Carter.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And she has spoken many times about, having been pushed to
Sure.
not say that she was Latina. And she's a very proud Latina today. Like, she doesn't have to
How
hide
tough would
anymore.
that would have been, right? Like, you can't even fully express
Anthony
yourself who you are.
Quinn.
That's right, Anthony
Right?
Quinn,
I mean,
yeah.
so many people.
Yeah. Well, as much as we can talk about all the challenges that we still have and face in front of us, there also has been, I think, quite a bit of progress, right? And when you see things like that, when you see someone like a Bad Bunny who is as Latino as it gets and is not, in any way trying to hide any of that, and
I was at his show this Sunday.
Oh, were you really?
Yes.
How was it?
It was fabulous. I mean, I
Nice.
tell you, I've been to many concerts. I think it's the best concert that I've ever seen in my life.
Interesting. Yeah.
3.5 hours of a complete history of Puerto Rico and traditions.
Wow.
And he makes it so incredibly fun that you don't notice, but when you finish, you are converted.
Sure.
You are in love with, the frog and everything that they have as traditions.
Coquí, no, I think it was called.
Coquí, exactly.
The little tiny frog, yeah.
It's so well done. He's such an entertainer. And of course, Raul Alejandro was there too.
Oh, nice.
So it was a really nice show.
He's been featuring different artists, right, as part of it? I
Yes,
think,
very
Yeah,
much.
That's awesome.
We were lucky that we were all fans of Raul. We are fans of Raul Alejandro. So they combine perfectly. They're both Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the show is a love letter for Puerto Rico, and you feel empathy, you feel love, and it really enhances your pride as a Latina, whether you're Mexican. I happen to be Mexican too, but Mexican or it really kind of brings it home for everybody in our community. And there were a lot of people that were not Latino, and they were converted too. It was really great.
And I think specifically, I saw a stat, I can't remember what the number was. It was New York Times reporting on this, that talked about what has been the economic impact.
$200 million.
$200 million.
To an island that is
so impressive.
in such need of it.
Right.
Honestly, we should be more aware of the needs of that island.
Yeah.
Because young people and professionals leave the island. So there's basically kids and mature people that are not paying taxes, that are retired. So there's not a lot of workforce. And so there's efforts from the city, from the island, to bring back workforce, to bring investment, and they deserve it. They really do a tremendous job of, nurturing the island with the limited resources. But I tell you, the show really converted us.
Well, I think being able to break down economic power, economic growth, that's kind of your jam, right? So, Ana, you're the CEO of Latino Donor Collaborative. Let's start there. Tell me more about what it is, what LDC is, what is its purpose, kind of what's been a little bit of your trajectory in sort of building this organization.
I love that because I'm passionate about it, so it's like my fun part.
Sure.
I tell you, I'm a nerd. So the Latino Donor Collaborative started 15 years ago. And it was put together, it's a nonprofit, and it was put together by some of the top business leaders in the country, Latino business leaders. And they said, we need to do something about narrative, exactly what you were addressing at the beginning. The narrative of who Latinos are in this country. Because as you know, Jesus, we actually started this country. Right? Much before British people came into this land, Mexicans, first indigenous, of course, then the mix of indigenous with Spanish people, founded California, Nevada, Colorado, Nuevo Mexico, Texas, Montana. So those states were already Mexicans before they became the United States. So these people wanted, this business leaders wanted to create a fact-based narrative of who Latino are. When I came in 10 years ago, they have done 1 or 2 reports and they were very good. And me being the statistics kind of person that I am, we said, why don't we do a think tank? And let's make a lot of different reports. We were lucky that our founder, Sol Trujillo, co-founder, one is Sol Trujillo, the other one is Henry Cisneros, but Sol Trujillo has been the CEO of 3 of the largest telecom companies in the world. And he started telecom, businesses in different countries.
Yeah.
And he said, every time I wanted to know if it was a good investment to get into a country or not, I would look at the GDP first, and then I would look at the trend. If it's a good GDP per capita and it's growing, this is a country I want to be in. So he said, why don't we actually start looking at the GDP of Latinos? Nobody had done it before. So that was our first big report. Now we have 69 reports. But that was our first big report. We do it every year.
Yeah.
We've worked with a lot of...
It's become a standard that I think for those of us in the industry, we look forward to seeing that.
Exactly.
Like I've used your stats more times than I can count.
Thank you. I really
And
appreciate that.
I think it's a testament to not only the consistency that you build out, but in many ways, I think it's become its own kind of standard, right? And that you guys have put out. And I love this idea of taking this growing community and really applying macroeconomics to it to give it scale or relative scale to other things that we sort of think of being much bigger.
Exactly.
Which goes into like obviously the narrative, how do you think about that? But even the actual GDP, because I know even as I've seen, like, tell me a little bit more about how you guys, like, what was the actual, like, approach of how you went about creating this now GDP that we sort of think about for Latinos?
So we started.
And what were some of the challenges, by the way, as you sort of talked about?
Oh my God, we've had so many challenges. I mean, this is a labor of love, and we love it. It's worth every second of our challenges. It costs us a lot of money too, right? Because we have hired different economists from different universities and different groups, some of them better than the other ones. We're very excited to work right now with Arizona State University, but to get there, we went through others until we actually found the team that is really excellent.
Yeah.
And so first, as I tell you, Sol Trujillo said, let's do this. And then he's incredibly talented as an economist, even though he didn't study economy, but he's a very, very well-educated
He's used
economist.
It quite a bit, right, in his business ventures.
He has to, right? I mean, you can't not use it. And so he started designing it. First, we worked with an economist that unfortunately passed away. Then we worked with others, and we kind of went really granular. We didn't have states, now we have states. Then we didn't have purchasing power, now we have purchasing power. So we started kind of nurturing into the report that is today. We actually are releasing the second part of the report of 2025 on September 24. And we're going to talk about, immigration, impact of the GDP and deportations on it. How will the total GDP of the United States will be affected? So we're actually getting really analytical and deep into the consequences and the impact that we Latinos have, all of us.
Yeah. What was some of the initial pushback that you got when you guys first put it out there?
My favorite one is this one. So when we actually created the first report, we hired the largest PR firm in the world. Okay. I'm not going to say the name, but it's the largest. And they were great, by the way. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. You know. But they were perfect, and the CEO was a very good friend of our chairman of Sol, and so he came with us to different meetings. So the first meeting, I'm going to say the name, but it was the New York Times, the head of the New York Times, and we went with this report, and we said, imagine that all this money is being created and produced by Latinos. And he would look at it and then look at us and look at, the CEO of the PR firm was very good friends with him. So he would look at his friend and then when he closed it finally, he said, I wouldn't believe these numbers if you, his friend, wouldn't have brought them to me.
Sure.
And we were like, wow.
Yeah.
Literally. And so we knew then that we had to work with official numbers because if not, they wouldn't believe us. And that we had to create this presence of our reputation was the most important part, right?
Sure.
So we are
yourself
super
weren't
strict.
really established yet, really, at that point. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
We work with universities, which we're
Right.
so proud of, and we also work with private research companies, like Bain Research, Boston Consulting Group, Nielsen. We work a lot with Nielsen, McKinsey. So we work with a lot of different groups. Right now, we're working a lot with Kantar, and Kantar is really such. You
Sure.
work with. Actually, we have a report with you on Kantar, with Univision and Kantar.
Nice.
But anyway, so we need the names.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes we teach them,
Yeah.
but we need their names.
Yeah.
So that the Wall Street Journal covers it the way they do.
course.
We release our reports on
And it's unfortunate, right? Because if you didn't have it, it's like it still needs that third-party validation. And look, I think the truth is, when some people look at some of those reports, I would say even for us in the business and Latino, even when we look at the number, like the numbers just get so large, and they're like, really? Like, is that like did they did not carry the dot or like is there a math thing that?
Totally.
Because I think the latest one puts the Latino GDP at over 4 trillion. I want to say.
4 trillion, exactly.
And that was versus what last year?
So
And by the way,
last
so
year
the one that came out this year is as of 2024, correct? Like, is that kind
it's
of
at
the
23?
Oh,
Because
23, okay, so
official
2 year-
numbers are
got it.
always 2 years before.
Got it.
Like I had, unfortunately,
Right. So
late.
as of 2023, the Latino GDP is over
Yep.
$4 trillion now.
$4 trillion.
And what was that in your last year report? That
So
would
the
have been
last
22.
one was 3.6, but Jesus,
Wow.
the most interesting part is that when we started
It's a
measuring
huge jump.
it,
I mean, just year over year, it's 10%, more than 10%.
listen, in 8 years. We started measuring in 2017, which of course was 2015.
Sure.
2015 was 2.1 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
In 8 years, it grew 100%.
Right.
That is the craziest thing.
That is the craziest
Like
thing.
my boss, Sol Trujillo, says, if you see a country that has such a tremendous
Right.
GDP
Yeah.
and it grows in that velocity, want to invest.
That's massive. Okay, so what are the drivers that you're seeing that are
So
fueling that growth?
I love the drivers because it speaks to your experience, my experience as human beings,
Sure.
as Latinos, as immigrants in my case. And so the first one, of course, is population, right?
Sure.
I mean, first of all, the big wave of immigration brought tremendous growth for our community. And of course, within population is youth. So the age most populated for Latinos is 12 years old, and the age most populated for non-Latinos is 52. So you can imagine how young we are.
Right.
So that's population. The
Right.
second one is this is my favorite one, workforce, and I'll tell you why. Because
By the
being
way,
so
I have
young,
it here. I think you had a report is 78% of the new workforce is Latino.
exactly.
And that's as of 2 years ago. Not even talking about now.
Yes, 78, Jesus.
That's
You're
wild.
talking about all the growth. You cannot
across the
grow
US?
economically
78%?
across the U.S. Across the
Wow.
U.S. Because the states that we see growing more are, well, in percentage, of course, not
Sure,
in
sure,
volume, but in percentage are South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio,
Yeah.
states that we really didn't expect to see so much growth.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So that's the second one, right? Workforce. There's also educational attainment, which is also fabulous, right?
Yeah.
In all the indexes and percentages, we grow much faster than every other community, including communities that are very educated, of course, like Asian, because, Asians come here with education, right?
Yeah.
I mean, their regime.
It's a core part of their culture.
Exactly, it's
very
part of their
disciplined.
culture.
Yeah.
So they come here as doctors, and their kids are doctors.
Sure.
Okay, it's
Great.
like upward mobility stable. We come here with nothing, and our kids become doctors.
Yeah.
That is upward mobility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that is real upward mobility. And then, of course, entrepreneurship. We are tremendous entrepreneurs.
Right.
I don't know, you know the number better than me, but I'm going to say it for your public. 36% of all the new businesses are founded by Latinos. We're 19.5%, and the majority are young people. So the truth is that probably 12% are
Yeah.
adults. So 12% of the population are founding 36%.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And
By the way, on that point, I would say this entire conversation we're having is the reason why it's so important is that we felt as an organization that we need to do more to support the entrepreneurial side of our community, which is a big part of our community. And really making this as part of a broader set of sort of series that we're launching. This, another series called Es Posible, all under a broader umbrella called Posible Network. But it's something that we're just getting off. So if you guys see this, it'll probably be in our Posible Network.
And you guys have done such a tremendous job at creating awareness of the importance of entrepreneurs within our community.
Yeah.
We still have to work a lot on it because we did a report 2 years ago with Bain Consulting, and they found that we're getting only 1% of the investment.
Yeah.
So even though we're entrepreneurs, we're not getting
issue,
the investment.
100%.
And they projected that if we got investment in parity with whites, the GDP of the country would grow $1.2 trillion.
I just saw that. Who it was
Bain Consulting.
I just saw. I was reading an article earlier today that talked about that specifically.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So
which is a massive growth. I mean, just on that part as well.
It's a massive growth, Jesus, especially because the American GDP is the biggest GDP in the world, but China and other countries are getting closer.
Yeah.
So $1 trillion on our GDP means a lot of growth.
Yeah. And it's new ideas, new services, new products, a lot of things that don't always get to see the light of day simply by not having, it's not about not having the right idea, the right strategy, the right hustle, it's really just not having the right funding, right?
Exactly.
And look, there was a lot of growth. I think especially after 2020, you saw a lot more investment, a lot of new venture funds that were more focused specifically on multicultural audiences. So that sort of brought some capital into the ecosystem. But it feels like we've gone a little bit backwards in that from that scenario in terms of the amount of investment there. So we'll see how that pans out. A lot of the work that you do as well, though, focuses on supporting private organizations as they're trying to figure out the Latino market, right? So in all this GDP growth, who are the winners? Like not only who are the winners, but where are the opportunities that you're seeing that, hey, if you haven't figured this out yet, like you need to make this your growth strategy?
We work a lot with brands. And we work with a lot of resource allocators in general. We work with some people that do policy. We work with media and brands, of course, corporations that are consumer products oriented. And I would say that some of those brands are the biggest winners. Some of those brands know this since a while ago, and they incorporated it into their advertising, their placement in media, into their product design, research and development, even procurement, right? Of course, hiring. Yeah. So these people know, and we know the brands because they're the leading brands. And this is so interesting. It is really refreshing, although concerning, to see how the leading brands are the ones that are applying this. And it's refreshing in terms of we feel recognized, right?
Yeah.
Constellation Brands, T-Mobile, we know the brands. It is kind of concerning that others are not. Because one of those CEOs, I'm not going to say his name, but one of those CEOs constantly say, it's, I'm future-proofing my brand because if I don't do Latino strategy, I'm not going to be here in 10 years.
Right.
And this is true. I mean, we've seen it left and right.
You know, when I was, so a couple of organizations back, I was the chief operating officer at Me Too, right, who you're familiar with. And at one point, we were speaking with the PGA Tour. And we ended up doing this big, campaign with them and this big sort of platform. And the work that we did with them came from a study that the commissioner for the PGA Tour had put together, where they did like a 50-year outlook. And they came with a very obvious conclusion, which was if we don't figure out U.S. Latino in some form or manner, we may not be around. So we have to start figuring out how do we actually start leaning into this consumer, this fan base, and all the work that we ended up doing sort of came from that. But it wasn't because we pitched them that idea. Most of the time, as a media company, we're having to both educate on the sector, the market, and also then educate on how we can obviously be supportive in that process.
Absolutely.
But in this case, they had done some of the work, which is always great when you see that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they were much open to ideas. They were asking for ideas, which is
those are the people,
yeah.
Those are the ones that will not suffer because they know where the growth is coming from. We always say, and you know this very well, Jesus, but we always say we're not a DEI company. We're not a philanthropic company. We're not a philanthropy, cause.
Right.
We're bringing you data for you to grow.
Yeah.
The community could be purple. It doesn't matter. the important thing is that this community is actually bringing the growth into this country.
Yeah.
And to your golf example, imagine that, so we're 19.5% of the population total.
Yeah.
But 27% of young people and almost 30% of births.
Yeah.
So if you don't invest, so you're seeing the future happening with those three numbers.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And this is the greatest part of it. That cohort of alphas, 94% of them were born here.
Yeah.
So
No, 100%. As you get younger,
right?
it's all
So they're going to be
driven.
playing golf.
Yeah.
I speak to schools, right? And I told one of those big schools lately, I said, you live off your endowments. Endowments are the donations of the successful alumni that come back and give back.
Right.
If you're missing 27% of the population, the one that is graduating in record numbers, the one that is having upward mobility to the core,
Right.
you're missing 27% of all those donations in 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of math.
Yeah.
Simple math, not even complicated math.
I think that's why I think your message is so effective. And I feel like any business owner should really be talking to you about it, because it's not, I think you make a pretty clear case, it's not that you should do this because it's only because it's the right thing to do, or because you think it's like good charity. Definitely don't do it for that. It's like, this is where growth is coming from. This is core to your business, to being competitive. I think going back to the point you were saying earlier, I mean, frankly, you're going to have to see some winners and losers, because what's going to happen, those that have not prioritized this will start to feel it. And that's a good thing ultimately, in the sense that that's going to drive more change, right? And I think, because if they don't feel the actual impact, then it's always tougher, because people just feel like they're not really feeling the pain of having made these short-term decisions and not investing in the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. And can I tell you something about this report that we did together?
Yeah.
So we did Univision. Actually, the report was done by LDC and Kantar together.
Sure.
But our sponsors, one of them being Univision, participated very much through the whole process. It was really such a joyful experience. It was L'Oreal, Capital One, Univision, and Colgate-Palmolive.
Okay.
Consumer product companies to the core.
Sure.
All of them very aware of the value of this market. But something that we found, which is amazing, is that 27%, which is the Latino part of the youth of America, is extremely assertive. They are not like my generation, trying to integrate, trying to.
They are not ruffle too many feathers in the process.
No, they're like, no, we want this.
Yeah.
They're unapologetically Latinos. They feel 200%ers, right?
Yeah.
They are, I'm 100% Latino proud. I'm 100% American, and nobody should take any of it out of my possibilities.
Right.
And one of the things that they do is they look very much into their consumption to see who is supporting their community and who's not.
Yeah.
They may be citizens, they may be American, they may speak English, but their parents weren't, and they're watching.
Sure.
Because for them it's personal.
Yeah, and there's always a direct correlation that you see there in terms of how then they're spending, and then as obviously their numbers grow, both in economic ability and also just in size, it creates a pretty massive impact.
I'm going to give you an example that happened, and it really, as I tell you, it was really joyful to do this report. It was a focus group. It was actually not a focus group. It's an interview. We were behind the camera, and the interviewer was telling this underserved young man that was going to college on a full ride. And he was asking him, are you ready? It's already August. Are you ready to go? And he was like, yeah, it's great. The only thing I have to do is buy a computer. And the interviewer said, what computer are you buying? And he said, I'm buying an Apple. And he said, why? I mean, there's so many computers that are more affordable that can do mostly the same. And he said, because underserved young man, because I did my research and I found that Apple has a Latina board member, 2 C-suite Latinos. I can see myself reflected in all their advertising, and my mom works there and they treat her really well. And we were like, okay, I have never done that research for myself, and I'm a marketer. I mean, like, what's happening? So these are the kind of kids that we're looking at. And so for brands, going to your point, right?
Yeah.
Brands need to listen, because we were quiet. We were loyal to start with. Like, older generations that are more mature, let's put it that way. You know, we first of all are super loyal to our, you know, Maestro Limpio and our Fab and, you know, whatever that looks like. These kids are not.
Yeah.
These kids are
Well,
very picky.
and I think it's such an interesting point that you're talking about here, because I was, a few weeks ago, I was speaking at an event for the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, right? And one of the questions that came up was this idea around young Latinos and how loyal they are to brands and what's driving it. So I kind of shared a theory, you know, and I want to run it by you. Let me know what you think, okay? So my theory was that, look, when we think about shopper behavior and you go back, you know, 10, 20 years, let's say 20 years, a lot of what we shopped, yes, it starts with, you know, brand awareness, consideration, you know, there's all the marketing that goes into even me knowing what a brand may actually be.
Right.
But then the moment of truth, the moment of I'm in the aisle and I'm going to make a choice, was also very driven by placement, right? Like that's why brands were constantly fighting about being at that prime placement, shelf space, right? Not only how much of the shelf you get, but where in the which shelf you get, right? So like
I worked for Nielsen in Mexico, so I knew
right. So
that.
okay, so my theory so far is okay, right? All right, so I think that was a big driver. So the more a brand was out there investing with awareness and people were like, oh, I'm gonna go get whatever, Tide or whatever the brand is. And then when I go to this grocery store and it continues to be in a very good placement, then people continue to be pretty brand loyal. And it's hard for other brands to break in, right? It's hard to break in because you cannot spend as much necessarily to reach them.
You don't have the volume.
You don't have the volume, you don't have the shelf space. So you have this dynamic where it's kind of, it rewards the winners to some extent, right?
Exactly.
Now let's fast forward and we think about how people are purchasing things, right? Well, you are still going to the store, shelf space, important, but you now have a couple of additional things. I can now search things on Amazon and I can see related products. I can now get ads that are being served to me on Instagram of either people that I follow or things that I'm interested in. And all of a sudden you have these competing brands that can break through and get to you in a manner that wasn't really easy before, and with an ability for me to transact with those brands way easier. So I think it creates this dynamic where you're able to sample all these different brands. Well, I think the interesting point that you're bringing up, so at least that's my theory as to why there's a lot less
100%.
brand loyalty.
Absolutely.
But I think the element that you're bringing up is one that should not be taken for granted by brands, which is, but what you do as a brand and how you show up to community also matters.
100%.
And the moment you take that for granted, we don't, you know, I guess we could talk about some of the ones that feel like taking it for granted, but the point is, like, when that's happened, like, you pay for it.
Absolutely.
And the community shows up and they don't show up, and then that's a problem.
It's the two things.
Yeah.
It's what you just said, which we called the democratization of consumption.
Yeah.
Right? What happened with music 25 years ago with Pandora and Spotify and Apple Music, where you actually can listen to anything you want. And if you like it, you can listen 1,000 times. You don't have to have an interview and advertising. You don't have to have a radio station. You actually can look. So that's how Bad Bunny emerged. That's how Peso Pluma emerged. That's how all these people that didn't have a huge budget emerged and became the biggest hits. So you're absolutely right. So one is that, the democratization of consumption, and the other one is the strong and demanding opinion of specifically the Latino community as to how are they being treated by them. The awareness of the power of their purse, especially the young people, of the power of their purse, and so the brands will have to step up 10 times more. It used to be with music that if you had a good record label, you actually were the king. Now it's not.
Right.
Now people have their own library. They have their own distribution.
And it really has changed the rules for all of us. I mean, it's changed the rules for us. You know, we also, of course, are in the radio business, and has there been an impact because of the rise of these music platforms out there? 100%. I mean, no one can say that it hasn't been the case. I think the thing that people didn't always understand is that radio historically was never really a place for discovering new music. It was a place to listen to hits and things that you're more familiar with. Now, that wasn't the music play, but if you keep the competition only from a music level, then like it's gonna be tough for us because there's so many more on-demand options, to your point. And I think what you're seeing on our side is not only a much more lean into conversations, podcasts, which is, by the way, podcasts came from radio, let's be honest. It's a format that just got expanded out, and we rebranded as podcasts like what we're having right now. And there's also this lean into lifestyle. And that is what ends up being a great reflector. Like I was talking about this with the team the other day. I've only ever put one sticker in a car that I've ever owned. Only once, okay? And it was because I grew up in LA, and this was when I was in college. My first car had one sticker, which was for 92.3 The Beat.
Oh, wow.
And that was the hip hop station. Theo was this, like, I think Filipino dude that was a DJ. I thought he was so cool. It was, because I grew up in Compton, so to me, hip hop music was really important.
Of course.
And that was the one station that I was like, I'm a 92.3 listener.
I love
like,
that,
this
yeah.
is me, right?
It's your brand.
It's my brand.
Yeah.
And I think that essence that these stations represent a certain lifestyle, right? If you're La Nueva, which is regional, or if you're Caleb, like each of them represents something different.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
a place that we are much more actively trying to really lean into. That lifestyle is a bigger driver.
You're
because when it comes
absolutely
to your point, music
Yeah.
is that's a field that we can't battle in, right? Like we're a little bit outgunned there. So what is the one that we can, right? No one is really no one's really putting the Spotify sticker in their car.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
You're so
right?
right.
So it's like why did people sort of see that, because it represents a style of a lifestyle, something that represents more of who we are.
That's another thing that came out on our report, which is that Latino young people are aware that they're actually driving pop culture.
Right.
And it starts with, for example, my husband was embarrassed to bring a burrito to school. And now kids actually are begged from their non-Latino friends to be invited to their house so that their Mexican mom can make burritos for them. Right? Like it used to be embarrassing. Now it's the coolest thing you can ever do.
Yeah.
And I tell you, that happened to my kids.
What are the food trucks that have the longest lines? Those are the burrito ones. You know?
Exactly. So they are aware. They say, my friends want me to teach them Spanish. I am really mad at my mom that she didn't push me more for Spanish. I want to go back to my country of origin, whatever that country is, because I want to know more about the place. The brands are important. We see the example of Constellation Brands. I always go back to that example because for a Modelo beer to go from 8 years ago being 18, number 18, to go to be number 1 today, an imported Mexican beer over Budweiser, that is crazy. And I know that they've suffered in the last 2 or 3 months.
It was a combination of both suffering and also like Modelo saw an opportunity. And they launched a campaign that was so rooted on a Latino insight, and that's unapologetic, but very relatable to a lot of people, right?
Totally.
What was it called? The fighter.
Jose Gonzalez came to this country with nothing,
right?
And then now he has like a chain of, and then it's like Modelo. What's it? Oh my God! And I love the music also.
Right. It's like a spirit of the fighter.
The spirit of the fighter. There you go.
I forgot what the specific one is, but it's such a relatable thing. I think they had Damian Lillard, who is a basketball player, point guard, African American, and they're telling his story, and it makes sense for him as well. So now you have this idea that is rooted in Latino culture, but that has universal appeal. I think that's genius. So it was a combination of a challenge, frankly, that one brand had, and listen. Everything becomes an opportunity for somebody else, right? And these guys jumped on it, and they did, I think, a great job with it.
That's how Latinos are driving pop culture.
So
when people 100%. Don't even notice. People don't even notice.
Yeah.
They just started doing Modelo without even asking.
So there was one thing that you did that definitely caught my attention, which is I saw you a couple of times now be part of the morning briefing with President Sheinbaum.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh my, like Anna, like she's like now at a whole different level.
Oh my God, I love it.
Tell me about that experience. And it was, I would say, and I mentioned to you when we were chatting about having this conversation, like tell me both about the good and the bad, right? Because I thought it was like, what a great opportunity. Like I would have loved to ever get a chance to do that, of course. But it also says something, the fact that it was being done as a morning briefing of a president from a different country. And you're talking about not that country, but this country.
Exactly.
So tell me about the whole thing.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the president of Mexico, the current president of Mexico, and I think the past one too, have a passion for immigrants. Mm-hmm. Remember that we have, 40 million, almost 40 million Mexicans in this country. So for them, for this specific president, this 40 million are part of the an addition to the 132 million that there are in Mexico. So altogether it's 172 million people that she adores. She studied here. She saw the evolution of the Latino community, and she's like naturally and organically passionate about it, right? And so that definitely helped. There also, we know the challenges of immigrants right now, the challenges of immigration and deportation. And, you know, being such a fan of the people, you can't talk about the Mexican people without talking about the Mexican Americans in the United States. So when she heard about this data, I was extremely lucky and honored to be invited. And you asked me about the good. It is really heartwarming and incredibly exciting to see the passion of the administration for immigrants. They are welcomed, they are taken care of, they are spoken graciously and in a dignifying way. So
it wasn't always the case, so it's really
it was not always the case. You and I,
case.
As an immigrant, I remember when I left Mexico, Mexican Americans were regarded as something far away, something that we couldn't really relate, something they left, it's not a problem anymore. And it's not anymore the case. And I do think that it's, especially for me, and I'm being self-serving here, for me, that I'm passionate about Mexican Americans and Latinos in general, that is incredibly heartwarming. Just to see the reality of an interest that is completely genuine, right? So, and then when I was able to share these numbers and the extremely, this interest that emerged from the press, from people emailing us, you know, left and right, thank you for bringing those numbers to the light. And then of course, you know, all kinds of right wing and left wing and all kinds of press interest in knowing this.
Yeah, what were some of the reactions?
It was interesting because we didn't know what to expect, and both the right and the left were interested for different reasons, right? I mean,
I'm sure.
Right, you can imagine.
The case. Yeah.
And but one that was really interesting was the business leaders. They were like, you know what? We, independently of their politics, they were like, wow. I mean, we really are not thinking about all this. Of course, brands like Bimbo and Chedraui and, you know, and Liverpool, of course, have thought about it, and that's why they're investing humongously here. But other brands were like, wow, I never thought about, you know, tortillas being there, or chicharrones. I mean, it's like all these different possibilities.
I literally had quesadillas with tortillas and chicharrones last night. So
oh my God, don't even tell me now. I want one.
I appreciate to the people.
Oh my God, you have to tell me where. So, so it was interesting. It was really interesting. I think it was the first time that I saw data not being contested by any of the parties.
That's
all
amazing
of them liked it.
For you to get that, because that's usually not the case.
Totally.
What do you think it was? Like, why this specific case?
I think that
I would have thought it would be the opposite. Like, my expectation was that you're going to get tons of pushback.
No pushback whatsoever.
Oh, so interesting.
All of them extremely interested in knowing the opportunity, getting to know more about like different regions, you know, how generational, affected, right? Who feels more close to Mexico and who doesn't. Very upset. I tell you, it was interesting. Both parties and both sides upset about deportations, right? This is not the way to treat a Mexican. And quite frankly, it probably has to do with the fact that, you know, sometimes Mexicans from Mexico are not treated well here, even as tourists, right? And so I think it was a little bit of I identify that shouldn't be happening. That's not right. That's not American, right? In Mexico, we used to think about the United States as a country that respected human rights, that welcomed everybody, that gave opportunities to all immigrants. And I think there is a backlash. I mean, not only in Mexico, but in every country, right? About the, lack of friendliness, if you want to call it, with immigrants. And so I think honestly, there was no pushback from anybody. Everybody was extremely happy to share this. I had interviews with both sides, and every time I go, I really get so much
Do you
press.
see this as like one of the levers that you have to try to push more on as it relates to how to tell the story? Because that's a big part of what you do. Is like, obviously you spend a lot of time with the research and putting together research, but really you as a CEO is
Yes.
very outward facing,
100%.
very much about telling the story.
Absolutely.
Do you see this as one of those levers? And if yes, then like how do you expand on it, right?
Absolutely. So
Like, have you
actually,
done anything with the UN, like ever, or no? Or is
we
that
haven't
feels-
yet, but we should definitely. I mean, I've spoken at the UN, but we haven't really made a
Of course you
program.
spoke at the UN. Anna, you're a stud.
But in Mexico, we're actually opening the Latino Donor Collaborative chapter in Mexico City.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you're invited on
Awesome.
September 29th. We're going to have an event there, and because of
great.
the interest, right?
Yeah.
People saying we want to be part of this, and and so yes, I see it. To your question, I see it as a tremendous speakerphone, right?
Yeah.
For the Latino story, for the Latino narrative in the United States. I am hoping that we get this interest from other countries because this should be, I know that Mexicans are almost 60%
Yeah.
of all Latinos, so that's great. As a Pareto Bell, being in touch with Mexico helps tremendously
Sure.
the Latino cause in general.
Yeah.
But I hope we can do it with other countries too, because imagine the union, and we've seen it with other cultures, right? We see the working together of the Jewish community with Israel. We see the working together of the African American community with countries in Africa. There's no reason why we wouldn't do that, right? And especially being so close by and being such a part of the workforce of this country. So yes, to your question, yes. I see the opportunity of working with the administration in Mexico as a win-win for both countries, right?
Yeah.
I'm an American now, and so I want the United States to win, and I want Mexico to win. And we're the biggest trade partnership in the history of the world.
Yeah,
So there's no
100%.
reason why we shouldn't. We should be nurturing that.
100%. And look, I think even in terms of communities, there's like actually a pretty good sized expat community out of from British that are here, and they're pretty organized in terms of how they think about helping expand opportunities with businesses to create relationships in the U.S. I
You're
know a couple of
absolutely
folks,
right.
and like somehow I
Italians,
got
the
invited,
same.
and one of these all of a sudden, like I know all these folks that are British that are out here, a lot of the media and tech side actually. So it is really, really
You're
interesting.
so right.
You talked about, Anna, in this second part of the 2025 report, that you're now looking at some of the more current events and what impact those are having. Look, we have everything from tariffs, this all the immigration stuff that is going on. How is it, and to the degree that you can share some of what you guys are starting to see?
Of course.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that. What are some of the themes that you guys are kind of putting
So-
out and starting to quantify what is some of that impact? And I think the scary thing to me is not just what's happening right now, but what is that impact going to happen in the next, few years as these communities are so impacted and some of these businesses are impacted in the process.
100%. We are starting to see this, but we're projecting that it's going to be much bigger. And each part has its own, challenges. So
Yeah.
first, of course, like lack of immigration.
Yeah.
We already were lacking workforce, right?
Yeah.
Right after the pandemic, there were 6 million jobs not being filled because of lack of workforce.
Yeah.
So immigration was filling up a lot of them. So now that immigration is stalling, we have that problem, and we're seeing it already with dairy farming and farms in general, meat packing, mining, all those important areas, but also doctors and and all these different services, that nurses, all the services that we need. So one is that one, right? The stalling and immigration. The other one is deportation. That is not only taking workforce away, but most importantly, creating fear.
Right.
And you see companies complaining, please stop the fear with Latinos because they're not shopping, they're not coming out, they're not gathering. When there's a typical place of work for undocumented migrants, they're not coming.
Sure.
So that's the second. And then, of course, tariffs, which we saw right after announcements that were very scary. People actually using different ways of sending money. Like, we did a survey, and the general opinion was, my mom is still going to get her $1,000. Now, how I'm going to do it, it's going to be,
I'm going to figure it out, yeah.
right? We're going to figuring it out. So, of course, Western Union, terrified. New, wise, terrified because they live off those. That's a huge business for them. So we'll see. I mean, tariffs are a little bit on a pause. So we'll see. I'm sorry, tariffs. No,
The immigration.
taxes on remesas, right?
Oh, got it. Yeah.
They are a little bit. So we'll. But what I can tell you, and I can't tell you the numbers exactly, but what we're seeing is there's a huge impact today, and there will be a huge impact because,
Sure.
as we know, you and I know, Jesus, tariffs are paid by the country that imports. It's not paid by the country that makes the exports.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, "I'm so glad that products from Mexico are being tariffed," they're not thinking, because that tariff is going to be paid by us in the United
And I think
States,
the challenge
not
is
by
that-
Mexico.
Yeah, the cause and effect is sometimes not seen right away, and I think that gives people a false narrative that they're not having an impact.
Yep.
We've seen a lot of these actual tariffs get absorbed by the companies that are importing and not yet pass on to the consumer, but you can only do
will.
it for so long. I mean, that becomes a sort of a math issue, right? Like you could only do that for so long, and eventually you kind of have to figure out how to be able to do that.
Exactly.
Even the jobs report, right? The August job report, I think was 22,000, something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
versus what they were expecting, which was like
Totally.
75. I think it was like 75,000. So
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting to think the next few months, and as more of the data start to come in, I start seeing more of the impact. What ends up being the case? So I definitely can't wait to hear
Yeah.
what you guys are putting
And
out as part of that.
You know what, Jesus? We're also worried about the change in methodology. Because not liking the numbers doesn't merit a change of methodology.
Right.
And so when you're talking
Yeah, I'm
about
not sure who'll
trends,
get fired to that jobs report. We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see what happens there. I guess we'll find out.
That's super important. And
Yeah.
people don't realize this. Independently of the party in place, in power, the United States numbers were always extremely well respected worldwide.
Sure.
They created the value of the dollar. They created that's why the dollar is actually still today the coin, So once that data loses credibility, our dollar will lose credibility, our projections will lose credibility, our stock will lose credibility. And so that's going to be super important for this administration to recognize, because we've been leaders because we had credibility.
Yeah. Well, listen, when it comes to all of these conversations, because I don't want to end on that, because there's a lot of stuff that we obviously going to be, worried about. Part of the goal here is to also people to also learn from you and your journey, your career is super impressive. The stuff that you've done, super impressive. I would love to end it with two things. Okay, one is just give us what is some advice that you have? What are some lessons that you've learned as you kind of gone in your career? Obviously, you've done a lot of really interesting things that you want to pass on to that. We talked a lot about the growth sector of Latino market, and the biggest chunk of that is a younger generation. What is some of that advice that you will give them?
I have one thing that surprised me through my journey that I was never taught about, and I actually was advised to do the opposite, and I'm glad I didn't listen. But most people that I know, that I studied with, even my family, has had a very linear, professional journey.
Sure.
And it's great, and it's secure, and it works for most people. What worked for me was to listen to my gut instinct and leave the safe options and follow that part that said, get out,
Right.
do this,
Right.
change lanes. I don't know why, but it's a good idea to go to another country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it really, I would have never been able to do what I do today if it was not because of that. And so today I can mix statistics with business, with marketing, with communications, with international, with projections, because I had all these different things in my plate and in my experience.
Sure.
And so my advice to people, especially in this day and age where we don't know what the future is. The truth is, everything is uncertain.
we don't know.
AI,
100%.
etc. Follow your gut. And if your gut says do something crazy, be smart. Don't do crazy things, but be smart. Assess your risk and take risks. And so that would be my advice. I always say that to my kids. And I hope that whoever listens to this, takes it.
We'll take that. Last thing, one prediction that you have as you look forward. Obviously, you do a lot of research. You do a lot of, as a think tank, a lot of trends that you're looking at. What is one prediction that you think we should be looking out for?
I think Latino youth will save the United States.
I love that.
I am completely convinced of that.
Yeah. In terms of our economy, or like, where do you see that from?
Our economy, our society, our values, our resiliency, our dedication, our passion for the right causes, our philanthropy, our devotion to family, our internationality, our bicultural, triculturalism, our global vision. I think we are a humongous gift to this country, and we will save it.
I think if you're a betting person, you should be betting on Latino youth. Couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you.
Anna, if people want to learn more about LDC or about you, where should they go?
Go to our website, LatinoDonorCollaborative.org, and also go to, so of course, that is the social media handle, Latino Donor Collaborative. But also go to our youth social media campaign, Elevate Latinos. We spread the word. We do it in a fun way. We work with a lot of different influencers that are fantastic with the data. We also work with some celebrities, which is really great. We're lucky that these big global celebrities actually use our numbers. And so go to Elevate Latinos in all the platforms and follow us.
Awesome. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
Very good.